Good evening, and welcome to the Quantum Experience. We would like to welcome Oklahoma School of Public Instruction Joy Hoffmeister, House Speaker Charles McCall, former Governor Frank Keating, former Governor Brad Henry, former House Speaker Chris Steele, and the many senators and representatives, and also the Cherokee Nation Tribal Councilor Keith Austin, and of course our OSSM Governing and Foundation Board. Please welcome OSSM alum and mathematics professor Reverend Sarah Marie Bodenstein to give us the invocation.
Will you be with me in an attitude of prayer? A generous God of blessing, we come together this evening aware of the bountiful gifts that we have been given. We have each been blessed in many ways. Some of us have been gifted with strong family support that has always encouraged us along our path. Some of us have known privilege and abundance, and doors have been opened for us. Some of us have natural gifts of intellect and understanding, make even the most difficult challenges approachable. Some of us have fierce determination, unwilling to be defeated by any obstacle. Some of us are gifted with our ability to help others see new paths and new possibilities. And so gathered together in this place, may we be inspired in new ways and find a new purpose for our blessings. We are blessed to be a blessing. May we be blessing to others by being support for them with our words and our presence. May we be a blessing to others by our gifts, making wonderful new opportunities. May we be a blessing by sharing what we know and helping others explore the vast universe of discoveries yet to be made. May we be a blessing through our work that we do for others by our determined commitment. May we be a blessing by helping others to see the value of learning and the potential for great future through OSSM. As we are gathered here for food, community, and learning, may we be deeply mindful of all that we have, and may we be inspired to share our blessings here at OSSM, in our communities, and indeed, wherever we may find ourselves. We lift up this supplication to you, our teacher, our inspiration, and our guide. Amen.
Good evening. It's an honor to be with you again this year. I didn't know after the last 2 years they'd invite me back, but they did. And I think it's really because of three main reasons. Reason number one, I'm an ardent, outspoken supporter of this institution and the difference it makes in this state. Reason number two is they literally brought me in after the famous 4-hour award ceremony a few years ago to get things moving. So my job tonight is to get you out of here in under 4 hours, okay? Reason number three is that I'm really one of the few people in the state of Oklahoma that's willing to give Dan Little a really hard time. So this is a great institution with a great history. And one thing I want you to think about tonight as you're hearing about these students and their achievements and where they're from, I want you to think about what if? What if there wouldn't have been an OSSM? Would this story have ever occurred? Probably not. And then I want you to think about beyond that, what could we do to expand that reach to even more? Because for every one of these students we're getting at an OSSM, we're probably missing 5 more. So think about that tonight when you're hearing about these students and where they come from. I'm really glad to see we have several dignitaries, not you, Brad, but several dignitaries. It's great to see my great friends Frank and Kathy Keating. last year I said that Governor Keating was my second favorite governor in the state's history. You're actually now number one. Brad owes me some money. He handed me a check, but it hadn't cleared yet. And then we're also pleased to have with us Governor Brad and former First Lady Kim Henry. I know there's a lot of other people. I'm not going to try to introduce everybody, but I did notice he's in disguise now. Former Speaker Chris Steele. He's in a beard. I didn't know him when he walked in. But anyway, Chris, it's good to see you. We enjoyed our time working with you in office. I was talking to Frank before the show, and he told me an amazing statistic. And he said that when he was governor, unlike when Brad was governor, that awesome students for the full 8 years he was governor were either number 1 or number 2 in the nation in their ATC scores. Number 1 or number 2 in the nation. Think about it. He attributes to that. He didn't take all the credit. He gave Edna some of the credit for some of that. But anyway, in all fairness, Brad, he did say that after, actually Edna told me this, after those 8 years that all the other schools got together and demanded they quit ranking the schools because Awesome kept winning. So I think that's a pretty incredible story. Well, tonight you're going to hear a few of those stories. And I think, though, we ought to take a pause for just a moment to, I always talk about Dan being the father of Awesome, but Awesome lost its mother this last year. Penny Williams passed away. She was one of the principal authors that carried this. And I want to just take a moment to recognize Penny and the amazing impact that she had. And it's great, I think, when you can do something during your lifetime that has this much impact that will literally carry on for generations to come. So let's give a hand to Penny Williams. So with that, since we are on the clock now, I want to get started with the show. We're going to start by recognizing several distinguished alumni.
I work for Boeing as a structural design engineer, and I'm the lead engineer on one of the AWACS projects. I went to Putnam City West. The way I found out about OSSM was my grandfather gave me an article that he cut out of a newspaper, and it talked about the students and the accomplishments and everything that was going on there. And he said, I figured this would be something you'd be interested in. So I read it and I kept it for years. I was in grade school when he gave me this article, and I thought, I'm gonna go there. OSSM offered courses that no other school that I saw or knew about offered. You have world-class math professors and world-class science and chemistry, the humanities, everything. I would have never been an engineer if I didn't come here. I would have never known that these opportunities exist, especially for women. It's amazing that OSSM accepts the same amount of females as they do males. They give the same opportunity. When you instill that kind of culture into a school, it teaches you that I can be that. I can be an engineer. If you can set up a child for success and you can give them the tools and you can give them the environment, you're not gonna fail. You're going to flourish. OSSM will admit anyone from any economic background. And that's what was really awesome for me because my family wouldn't have been able to afford it. There are so many bright people out there, and if they're given the chance or given the opportunity to develop their STEM skills and be a better scientist or a better doctor, I mean, this is the place. Even with the STEM jobs that we have and the engineering jobs we have here in Oklahoma, we aren't able to fill them as a state. If you have culture that is more welcoming to the science and math and STEM educations, then I think more companies would follow. OSSM gives the opportunity for some of Oklahoma's brightest students to develop their skills and become better students.
At a young age, I thought I might like to work in the medical field, and so I always knew that science and math classes would be important. And at my high school, there weren't very many science and math classes available. OSSM provides something for Oklahoma students that they couldn't find at their home high schools. It would be really difficult for every high school in Oklahoma to offer science courses of this level. So this is a way for Oklahoma students to be able to get the education that they need. And it's good because it leads them on a path that will eventually, circle back and impact the state. OSSM had a big impact on my life because it really showed me what it's like to be in a school setting where people really cared about their education and they really wanted to push themselves to do the best that they can. I feel like I had not really ever been in that kind of environment before, and so that really prepared me for what college was going to be like and what dental school was going to be like. So I don't think that I would have been prepared for college or dental school without having that experience. One of my goals in life is to be able to give back to Native American people. And as a dentist in a Native American clinic, I do that every day at work. And I feel like that's something I wouldn't have been able to achieve if I hadn't gotten a good education from OSSM, which led to college, which led to dental school. So I think that definitely set me on a path to help achieve my goal.
I grew up in small-town Oklahoma. The highest level of math at Collinsville was a half year of trig and a half year of calc, and I felt like I wanted to learn more about the world than I was going to get in Collinsville. So I expected OSSM to be an incredible amount of work, and it was. But I actually didn't expect it to be such a wonderful experience socially. And it was great to come here and be surrounded by all sorts of bright, interesting people doing neat, science-y type things, considered me sort of a person. If I think about the course of my life, it's hard to think of any one thing that had as much of an impact on where I went and what I was able to do as this school. Anyone who's thinking about potentially coming to OSSM, apply. It's a wonderful experience. It is very hard, it is very challenging, and it is absolutely worth it.
In my senior year of OSSM, they allow a mentorship program. That experience as a mentor program at OSSM really set me up with this lab that I eventually got a PhD with and was in rheumatology, and now I'm a rheumatologist. I know rheumatology is much needed everywhere, but definitely in Oklahoma, there's a big need for physicians in this field. So having people that are from Oklahoma that understand all the great things about Oklahoma that want to stay here is definitely helpful in the field of medicine for sure. I grew up in Laverne, Oklahoma. I think currently 1,000 people in Laverne, Oklahoma. My school was kindergarten through 12th grade all in one building. And so the class offerings were pretty limited. I think OSSM is very unique in that it fills that role, one, from a science and math perspective, where you have classes that are available to you, but two, the fact that it is supported by the state. You can't take any more math classes in the rural schools. I mean, they're just not able to offer the math and science classes at a higher level. And so really this gives rural students the opportunity to have that kind of education. The best aspect of OSSM in preparing me for the future was really study habits, which allowed me to be successful in college and allowed me to be successful in medical school, which was incredibly challenging. And so I think learning that at an early age allows you to be more successful later on in your career. As someone that came from a very small rural town, I think this is a critical asset for Oklahoma.
I'm going to ask the honorees that are here tonight to all please rise so we can honor you for your accomplishments. Please stand. Now it's time for me to introduce our keynote speaker for this evening. We have with us tonight from Dover, Oklahoma, the awesome class of 1993, Shelley Finley. Shelley has a BS in Physics Space Science with Chemistry and Math minors, an MS in Physics with a Chemical Engineering minor. She was the 2011-2012 Albert Einstein Distinguished Educator Fellow, the NSF Division of Polar Programs. From 2012 to 2017, she served as Science and Technical Project Services Supervisor in the South Pole Antarctica support. I can't imagine 5 years in Antarctica. I'm sure she'll tell us a little bit about that. In 2018, she served as the Deputy Program Manager to the GeoCarb Mission Collaboration at the University of Oklahoma. That's where she currently serves. I also noticed in her bio that she's the only person I've ever encountered that has an asteroid named after him. She's received a remarkable distinction of managing the Amundsen Scott South Pole Station for 13 months over the winter in 2013-2014 for ASC Lockheed Martin. She is now back at home in Oklahoma, helping head up a new 9-year climatology program in Norman under the largest federal contract in the University of Oklahoma's history. Please help me in welcoming Shelley Finley from the awesome class of 1993.
So thank you, OSSM and everyone here for inviting me. I very much enjoy coming back to OSSM every opportunity that I get to speak about my experiences. I've been very fortunate in having the privilege of first teaching at the Louisiana School for Math, Science, and the Arts, our sister school in Louisiana, for 10 years, and then joining the Antarctic program, and now coming home to be about an hour and a half away from my dad, who fixes my motorcycle most weekends for me, and working at OU. The OU Foundation sponsored a table tonight, so if you're interested in OU, please stop by and talk to them. I'm part of the Atmospheric and Geographic Sciences department. That's what GeoCarb is under, so please speak to Petra. Wave, Petra. If you're interested, they'll hook you up. My PI who manages our project, our overall project, Barry Moore, is the director of the National Weather Center and the dean of our Atmospheric and Geographic Sciences, and he couldn't be here tonight, but I want to recognize what he has done, because without him, we wouldn't have this wonderful project. My goal tonight is to talk about GeoCarb because that's my current job, but I know everybody loves to hear about Antarctica, and I love talking about Antarctica. I will try my best to fit a little bit in, but Pam will probably knock me off the stage very soon. So we'll do the best that we can. We're gonna start with a short video, 2.5 minutes of an overview of GeoCarb.
We used to gaze up in the sky and wonder how the world works. How am I connected? How does my life matter? But have you ever wondered what's gazing back? If we gazed back, maybe we could see. The Earth is constantly in flux. We could watch the Earth breathe. We have seasons, patterns, motion. We have many things we don't yet understand. What if we could solve some of life's greatest challenges? What if we could find the answers to the tough questions? What if we could understand? Now we have the opportunity to look back on Earth as something undetectable to the naked eye, something that can change the future, something that can see what we can do, even as small as we are. GeoCarb is an observatory attached to a satellite stationary over the Americas, looking down on us every day, monitoring life, monitoring change. The measurements it takes can see a variety of things: oxygen, carbon, photosynthesis, plant health. Trying to understand, trying to change the future. Carbon is a building block of life. It is essential to all life on Earth. It is something we need to know more about. From space, we can see the rhythm of life. We can see how it impacts us. We can understand more for ourselves and for future generations.
So GeoCarb is the Geostationary Carbon Cycle Observatory. I'm the deputy project manager. I work at OU. We have a project manager that works at Lockheed Martin. And then, of course, Dr. Moore is our principal investigator. I will explain why this is a very different project than what NASA's used to doing. So what is GeoCarb and why are we different? Main things are that we're actually a pretty simple instrument. We're just a spectrograph. Most of the scientists in here know what that is. Kind of just an infrared telescope, basically. But what's different about us is that we're a NASA contract, not a grant. NASA said, hey, we need this data. And OU said, okay, this is what it's going to take to build an instrument to put on a commercial satellite, which will be launched by a commercial agency to put it in space and take the data that you want. We're an Earth Venture mission, which means we are a complete PI-led mission. So we at OU are totally responsible for the success of this mission. NASA says, get it done, and it's up to us to make that happen. We find our own ride. What does that mean? So a lot of times NASA will say, hey, very smart people out there in academia, please build this instrument and we'll figure out how to get it in space. We have to figure out how to get our instrument in space as well as build it. We are cost capped at $170 million. It's the largest OU contract in history of the university. That sounds like a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of NASA things, it's really not a lot of money. And it's an 8-9-year project, depending on extensions and that sort of thing. We hope to launch in 2022 with 3 years of data with possible extensions. So our goal is to understand the global carbon cycle. And I'll go into more of that in detail. Our instrument, we have a basic spectrograph instrument. These are the details. I'm going to skip through them. The students got this presentation earlier, but again, in an effort to talk about Antarctica too, I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty details, but this is actually not a very big instrument. It's only 1 meter by meter by meter, and it doesn't weigh a whole lot, 160 kilograms. Data rate's pretty low, 10 megabits per second. Most of you have faster internet at your house, although my dad, living out in the middle of nowhere, does not. And the resolution we'll talk a little bit about, and I'll show why that's important. But we're going to look at 4 bands. They're listed there. That's the carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, methane, oxygen, and a thing called SIF, solar-induced fluorescence. That's going to help us understand how carbon enters and exits our ecosystem, our biosphere, our atmosphere, our oceans. Here's the overall team. You can see that Berrien and the University of Oklahoma are the top. We determine the success of this mission. But of course, we have partners around the world. Our main partner being Lockheed Martin out in Palo Alto. They're helping to build our instrument. And then other partners, Colorado State, and of course, a slew of NASA facilities. So overview, what is our goal? GeoCarb is to provide observations and demonstrate methods to realize transformational advance in scientific understanding of the global carbon cycle. That's a lot of words, but what does it mean? It means that right now, we don't fully understand the sources and sinks of carbon in our system, in our global system. We can't account for all the methane. We can't account for all the CO2. And so to be able to understand the science and to advise policy, we need to better understand that. And that's hopefully what GeoCarb will do for us. So our science hypotheses, again, I put this up here for the science folks, but basically the first 3 are the things that we told NASA that we will absolutely definitely do, and the next 3 are the things that we really would like to do, and we still plan to do. But the first 3 we have to do. But ultimately, hopefully GeoCarb will shift our understanding of carbon in our atmosphere. I mean, just things like understanding, and I have this later in the presentation, do large cities per capita produce more CO2 than small cities? It kind of seems like a given, but we don't know the answer to that. So here's the sources and sinks. So sources, you know, is like fossil fuel burning and logging, and sinks, of course, is the uptake by trees and the oceans and the atmosphere. And right now, we can measure those things, but they don't balance. You can see there's a budget imbalance at the bottom, and that's what we're trying to understand as well. CO2, CH4, and carbon dioxide. Again, I'm going to focus on the big highlights. We do not understand the processes that are leading to the dynamic of the fluxes of these chemicals. We don't know the balance of the methane budget. We don't fully understand the sources of some of these chemicals. So we hope to be able to understand that too. So resolving terrestrial fluxes, and what we mean by flux is the change in CO2 over time, the change in methane over time, requires spatially and temporally dense observations. That means, man, we would really like to have data on the minute scale, the second scale, the day scale even. Right now, we can only get this data every 2 weeks or so, and I'll show you a dynamic of that. There's an instrument called OCO2, and there's another one called OCO3 that's about to launch. They only collect this data about every 18 days or so. We're gonna collect it every few hours, certainly every day, depending on how we decide to focus. And then ultimately, we need to connect the models with the data. And that's what we hope to do by having temporally dense data. Okay? Solar-induced fluorescence, I won't talk much about this, but this is a byproduct of what we're able to do. Light shines on the earth, and that causes plants to photosynthesize, and that gives off radiation that we can detect, which gives us an idea of plant health. And so we can actually detect crop health from space to help better educate farmers on what's working and what's not working. So this is a very useful, particularly for us in Oklahoma and all through the Midwest, how we can use our instrument to advise directly how to better help them as farmers and ranchers. And it also helps industry. So let's say you have a methane leak. So oil and gas company has a methane leak. Well, that costs them money, and that also pollutes the environment. That's also dangerous. My dad used to haul oil for 40 years, and if he pulled up on a lease that was leaking methane, that could potentially kill him, and he might not know it. So being able to detect that from space and telling the companies about it and correcting it is better for everybody. Some unanswered questions. I'm not going to focus on this. I talked a little bit about it. Amazonia, we're gonna be over the Americas, Amazon and the Americas, because we're going to be in geostationary orbit. That means we're going to be very high above the Earth, but we're going to stay above the Americas. That's what gives us this temporally dense data. And that's important because we don't understand, particularly Amazonia, which has lots of trees and a lot of deforestation, how that changes over time. And again, you guys can read this slide, and if you're interested, you can always ask me questions. Here's an illustration. That's OCO. You can see that OCO is only getting a tiny swath of data, every day or so, and then they won't come back to the US for about 2 weeks. Now, geocarb turns on when the sun comes up. That's when you saw the thing flip open. You'll see this little red line. That's geocarb taking data. So the little red lines flashing across, we can take data. We can take a swath of data, a single red line, every 9 seconds. So we can scan the entire US within about 4 to 8 hours, depending on our resolution. And that's highly variable right now because of various factors. So I kind of leave it open. So we're able to scan over an area that's interesting. Let's say there's a forest fire in Brazil that we're interested in. We could focus on that for several days and get very temporally dense and accurate data, whereas OCO might get to it this week and then 2 weeks later. We can still use their data if they happen to pass by and correlate it, and it'll help us calibrate. But ours is going to give us very specific information about how much carbon was put off when that forest fire started, what was the total carbon uptake into the atmosphere. Just so many questions it can answer. I'm in project management. Again, I was trying to be fast, so I didn't explain all that. At a point in your career, they stop letting you do science and they make you manage scientists. So that's what I do now. So I'd like to talk a little bit about project management just because that's something that most people don't think about. And this is our overall scale for what our project looks like. We hope to launch our instrument in 2022. We have to design the instrument, build the instrument, all while keeping NASA happy, and then get a ride by a company. Right now that company is called SES, that's affordable for our project based on what we proposed 4 years ago. And as you know, things tend to increase with time, costs tend to increase with time. So that has been a challenge for us. Here's an overview of the overall instrument. It's not very big, like I said, 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter roughly, but a lot of complicated parts. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of those. This illustrates how we're going to integrate our instrument with the host satellite and launch vehicle. It's not an easy thing, especially since we need to be as flexible, because although we are working very closely with a company called SES, they may have a business case in a year that we can't afford, or we may find another company that can do it less expensively and be at a better orbit for us because we want to stay over the Americas. So this just kind of illustrates how we need to stay as flexible as possible while working with our teammates to meet their needs. And here's some possible launch rockets. I mean, we get to stick our instrument on the end of that and hope it doesn't blow up. I wanted to highlight when science gets complicated, because science isn't always easy. We had a preliminary design review, and what that means is we tell NASA, here NASA, this is what we plan to do, how we're gonna do it, and why it's gonna work, and why we're gonna stay within cost. And if we are successful at that, we move on to phase C, what KDPC is. In August, we tried to do that, and we did not do a very good job of that. And they said, no, you're not approved to move on, you've got to go through this process again. So we went back to the drawing board. Why? Why did we have to go back to the drawing board? What happened? Well, our mass, 160 kilograms, that doesn't sound like a whole lot. 2.2 kilograms per pound. It's not a big instrument. What's the big deal? Well, mass is fuel, and fuel on a rocket is expensive. And we found out very quickly that our launch provider wanted to charge a premium, and our mass had grown by crazy amounts. So we had to go back to the drawing board, and our Lockheed engineers, students paying attention, this is what you're gonna do if you wanna be an engineer, said, hey, okay, how can we reduce the mass? Well, they just shrunk the optics. They just made them all smaller. It's a great idea. As a physicist, I hated that I didn't think of it. Especially since I used to work in radio astronomy and optical astronomy. But a fantastic idea. Now, that lowers your data rate, but that was okay. We had plenty of data, right? We're taking data every 4 seconds. So now instead of taking it every 4 seconds, we're gonna take it every 9 seconds. That's a lot of data. So data wasn't a problem. So shrinking our optics, less data, but we just have to take data every 9 seconds. We have to stare at that spot for 9 seconds instead of staring at it for 4 seconds. So not a huge deal. And then that got our costs down, which was good. We needed to get our costs down. And that's what I call the D-scope. We also have to evaluate what's the impact to science. As I said, it's a data issue, but not really. Re-engineering, that costs extra. Things were already done. We had to re-engineer. And then there was some new engineering in there. So we ended up with a Delta preliminary design review this February, and we passed. Yay! So lots of kudos to my colleagues for that. And then, of course, we've been delayed a little bit by the government shutdown. That's painful, but it's life. So where's GeoCarb now? We have our science goals well defined. Our instrument is well laid out. Our scientific algorithms are also well defined. We pretty much we think we understand the data we're gonna get and how we're gonna use it. And then we're continuing to mature our launch services, because that's a huge variable, one that no other project has ever had to experience. We are the first EVM NASA project that's ever had to find its own ride in this way. There was an EVM 1, but their launch was a lot different and a lot less complicated. We're medium risk, but extremely high reward. If we get it up there, we're gonna show two things. We're gonna bring in this really incredible data that's gonna help us understand global carbon, but also we're gonna show that PI-led, commercially viable missions for NASA are possible. And that's huge, and that reduces cost for all of us as taxpayers, which I'm all for. I'm cool with that. Okay, that's all about GeoCarb. I'll talk a little bit about South Pole, even though I don't have a whole lot of time. So I had the privilege of spending 5 years in the Antarctic program, the United States Antarctic program out of Denver. I would deploy to the South Pole Station, the one on the bottom of the Earth, for 3.5 months. 1 year, I got to spend 13 months down there, where I managed the station. The coldest temperature I've ever been in is minus 105.4 Fahrenheit. Yeah, so this stuff's nothing. I'll show you some cool pictures. That's the station. That's the station during the winter. Once the station closes on February 15th, nothing in or out. It's too cold. It's minus 50 or below. Planes don't fly. I'll just flip through these. Oh, yeah, Buzz Aldrin showed up one day. Yeah, it's just like, oh, what did I do today? You know, I posted on Facebook. So this happened today at work. Buzz Aldrin showed up. Had a few other famous people. Prince Harry showed up with a group of people. Yeah, that was pretty crazy. You can see we're kind of normal people, but usually if you want to isolate yourself at the South Pole, you're probably not that normal. This is some things we did during the winter. We lost our water well, so we had to actually melt snow for our water. I went 12 days without a shower, which wasn't that bad. But I shower more regularly, I promise. Auroras, so just some cool pictures. We do science there, and that's where I did radio astronomy. My background's in radio. We do drill ice cores. There's our winter over photo. There's my pole marker. So every year, the crew gets together and designs a pole marker for that crew, and then it's unveiled every year on January 1st, and that becomes the pole marker for the next year. And so that's our pole marker that we designed. Our machinist makes it from hand with materials on station. So I'm happy to talk about all this, and I thank those of you who have heard my presentation before. And yes, ma'am.
Can you explain about the marker, why they change it every year?
Oh yeah, so I love you, Pam. Pam asked me this question earlier. The South Pole itself doesn't move. I mean, it moves slightly, but not much. But the ice on top of it moves. And so the location on top of the ice, because we're on 2 miles of ice at the South Pole. We're at 10,000 feet, very high altitude. And so that ice drifts about 10 meters every year, 30 feet roughly. And so you have to remark it every year so you kind of know where it's at. And you know, because tourists come in. I mean, we have people who pay lots of money to come to the South Pole for like an hour. Yeah. And get their picture taken and come get a tour of the station. And yeah, but again, I thank everyone so much for inviting me. I very much enjoy sharing my experiences, and I thank OSSM for providing me the foundation for those experiences, and all of you for spending a few minutes listening to what I've done. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. I'll assure you I have no desire to go spend 1 minute in the South Pole. Nor does Kim Henry. So it's my pleasure now to introduce to you all the father of Awesome. He's really a man who needs no introduction, but I'm still going to introduce him anyway, because I get to. And I think it's about 16 years ago, Brad Henry was telling me, have you ever met Dan Little? And I said, no, Dan Little? Yeah, Dan Little from Little Dixie. I said, no, my practice law is the other part of the state from there. I've never come across him. He said, well, he is one of the brightest guys you'll ever meet and one of the biggest Democrats. In fact, when everyone else in Oklahoma goes Republican, he'll be the last one. Well, little did Brad know that, and I don't know the exact chronology, Dan, daughter marries former speaker or whatever, some chronology in there, Dan goes the other side. I did hear, though, that Nancy Pelosi just tweeted, Dan, that the Democrat Party would take you back. She said she couldn't offer to marry one of your offspring, but she was a really snappy dresser. You know, when I first met Dan, I mean, instantly you realize his intelligence. I mean, he is a brilliant man. But the other thing that you almost as soon you realize is how passionate he is about Awesome. I spent 8 years of, whether we had money or not, Awesome needs this, Dan wants this, let's figure out how to get it to him. And he has just been not only a visionary, but he's made it the passion of his life to build this place into what it is. Now, so I thought, well, what can you tell? You know, Dan's a great lawyer. We actually did a case together once. That was kind of fun. But he's a great lawyer, obviously a great benefactor of this institution. But you may not know, and I didn't realize this till today, I always know he's a little bit crazy, but he recently completed the World Marathon Challenge. Is this really right? 7 continents. You ran 7 marathons in 7 days? How do you live through that? You're just showing off. You're like a show off. So I would like to introduce you to my good friend and show off, Dan Little.
You know, Scott has been such a strong supporter of OSSM. Every time I see him, I can only appreciate his articles, his passion, what all he has done for OSSM for so many years. But every time I see him, I also think of this fun lawsuit that he just referred to. Scott was on a team of very good lawyers from McAfee and Taft, Crowe Dunlevy, against the little law firm. Scott single-handedly handed me the biggest defeat in one of the biggest cases. And I thought I was going to win. And then I read Scott's brief, and I said to myself, oh no. And I was right. Now, tonight, words cannot express how delighted and proud I am as chairman of the board, of the governing board, to honor the Sarkis Foundation and to tell you the rest of the story on how the Sarkis Foundation has not only made the most cash donations of any donor, but has done so at critical times without which, in the early difficult years, OSSM may not have survived. Let me first recognize the OSSM members who are here tonight. Former board member Richard Bell and Sandy, present board member Dr. John Bell and Pam, Chris Steele and Kelly, and of course Kim and her spouse, Governor Brad Henry. If you all would help me. Now, I failed to mention Linda Weeks, our general counsel, and so much more, and her husband, Charles. Linda. First, the numbers. The Sarkis Foundation has made 20 separate donations in 17 different years in the total amount of $2,100,000. The largest cash donation of any donor. Second, the rest of the story. How and why did this happen? In the first years, early years, as Governor Frank Keating knows well, OSSM was one big political controversy and political football. And thank you for your 8 years of strong support. There were strong forces in the legislature which wanted OSSM to disappear. We finally got the promise of major funding from the legislature, but it was in the form of a challenge which had to be matched by private donations, dollar for dollar, by a certain deadline. We were far short of the money, and time was running out when I persuaded Richard Bell, a law school classmate and friend, and a member of the South Sarkees Foundation Board, to meet me at the OSSM campus, which was then still a dilapidated neighborhood. I shared the vision of the school and the campus with Richard. And Richard grew up in Seminole and understood quickly what OSSM could mean to all of Oklahoma, and especially rural Oklahoma. Richard expressed strong support, and I was so hopeful that he could persuade the other 6 members of the Sarkees board to his view. Now, I have failed to mention that at that time, I was not a member of the Sarkees board, knew very little about the Sarkees board, and did not know that not only was Richard the strongest leader of the Sarkees board, but that Richard was then and has continued to be, not only until he retired, but to the present, in a good way, the godfather of the Sarkees board. Richard was and always has been the leader on the Sarkees board in making cash donations to OSSM of $2,100,000. Richard, now that the rest of the story has been told, would you please stand up so we can express our appreciation for you and the Sarkees Foundation for their leadership and support of the Oklahoma School of Science and Mathematics. Now, for the last 10 years, the Sarkees Foundation has been blessed with the best executive director in the history of the Sarkees Foundation. Time does not permit me to tell you her story, apart from the story you already know of Kim as being the beautiful and gracious First Lady of Oklahoma while Brad Henry was governor for 8 years. Now, I'm going to digress. I cannot mention the name of Governor Brad Henry without expressing the greatest appreciation to Governor Henry, not just for 8 years of strong support, but for directing over $1 million in discretionary money to OSSM at a critical time when we desperately needed it. Now, Governor Henry, thank you. And Kim, thank you for whatever influence you might have had on Brad. Kim and Brad, would you please stand and be recognized? Now, turning to the future, the latest contribution of the Sarkees Foundation, literally beginning tonight, is the establishment of the $500,000 S.J. Sarkees Foundation Endowed Chair of Teaching and Scientific Excellence. And tonight, honoring and naming Dr. Fazlur Rahman as its first beneficiary. Kim, while I'm talking about Dr. Rahman, would you join me on the stage? Okay, listen to this. Born and educated in Bangladesh, Dr. Rahman got his Bachelor's of Science and Master's of Science in Chemistry in Bangladesh. He did another Master's in Organic Chemistry at Brandeis University, and then his PhD at the National University in Australia. Consider what Dr. Rahman has achieved as our senior faculty member of 26 years at OSSM, teaching chemistry and organic chemistry. Coaching our students for the Chemistry Olympiad, 16 OSSM students have been selected to attend the National Olympiad camps. And our students have won the highest gold medal, the silver medal, and several bronze medals. In both the National Science and Team Bowl competitions, our team has won the state championship every year and has earned the national championship in teams almost nearly every year. Dr. Rahman initiated and developed the Organometallic Chemistry Research Program, the first for a high school in the nation. Dr. Rahman has won the Stanford University Teaching Tribute Award for exceptional teaching, the American Chemical Society Teaching Award, and the prestigious Oklahoma Chemist Award. Dr. Rahman has published 23 scientific research papers and has made 67 research presentations at national and international conferences. He has held faculty positions during the summer at Texas A&M, Caltech, and the University of California at Berkeley, and has taught chemistry at the University of Oklahoma for 2 decades. Now, in 2017, Dr. Rahman and his awesome student, George Wong, now at Stanford University, received national and international acclaim for their paper postulating and explaining that the carbon atom can form 7 bonds, which, if proven, would be a fantastic scientific discovery. Dr. Rahman, with the support of the faculty of the Sarkis Foundation Endowed Chair, will be traveling to Germany this summer to perform research with the 2 top German scientists to demonstrate, in fact, that carbon can form 6 or even 7 bonds. If successful, this would be the level of scientific discovery for which Nobel Prizes are awarded. Dr. Rahman, would you please come forward? Dr. Rahman, Kim Henry is handing you our $20,000 check as your annual supplement to your faculty salary.
Bravo.
Thank you so much. I can speak for a long time because that's the way I have been trained for. But I'll keep it short. I want to say this. It has been a great fortune for me to be able to be part of this great institution. And I thank Dr. Manning for hiring me and Dr. Wang not firing me. I think Honorable Chair Dan Little has been the guiding compass for this great institution. His leadership is invaluable, and from far I watched him as he spoke with passion, with love for the state of Oklahoma. I say in presence of all dignitaries, it bothered me a lot that Oklahoma ranks 49th in the nation. Frankly, it has been my effort a little bit, and thanks to Dr. Manning's great vision, and I have Dr. Liz here, who has always professed academic excellence, and my colleagues, past and present, has been part of this teamwork. Thank you, Dr. Manning. Thanks to the people of Oklahoma. I'm really thankful and grateful. I hope better days of Oklahoma is yet to come, and thank you all for your support. We are so blessed to be in Oklahoma. Thank you so much.
I am getting ready to sit down, but I can never sit down without recognizing Dr. Edna Manning. And also am delighted to recognize Dorothy Dodd and Ken Lease. It is my honor and privilege to introduce Dr. Frank Wong. I'm going to keep this introduction short because I want him to have time to share his vision of the Oklahoma School of Science and Mathematics. I will tell you that Dr. Wong, if you read about his academic accomplishments as a Westinghouse scholar, pure mathematics at Princeton, and then his PhD at MIT, he is a brilliant teacher and a brilliant man. But not only is Dr. Wong one of the most brilliant men I have ever known, Dr. Wong is one of the most humble and kind people I have ever known. Dr. Wong.
Thanks for the very kind words. It's very humbling to be here. And as Isaac Newton wrote in a letter to his fellow physicist, Robert Hooke, if I had seen farther, it's because I stood on the shoulders of giants. And so indeed, if it weren't for Dr. Manning, I would not be speaking before you today. So in terms of goals for the school, I should mention that our residence hall, we recently completed with 2 new wings in 2013, are only half full. So I think in the original vision of the school, we were looking at about 300 students, and we have about 150. So we have another 2 wings of our school to fill. My personal goal is that we touch the lives of every young person who may aspire to a STEM career in the state. So certainly we don't have enough room to house all the students that may aspire to STEM careers, but we run teacher workshops in the summertime. We run summer programs. We have day outreach programs. We have math competitions that we sponsor. And you may or may not know, we actually have a physical presence in 8 towns throughout Oklahoma: in Drumright, Enid, Muskogee, Okmulgee, Poteau, Stillwell, Tahlequah, and Wayne. We have full-time instructors, as well as a physical presence, typically in a career technology center. And we recently started a virtual regional center where we can deliver instruction through live interactive video. And so we're hoping to reach out to the far corners of the state. We already deliver instruction online to Coweta, Elk City, Plainview, and also to students in Poteau. Recently, we've made an agreement with Lawton Public Schools to deliver instruction in advanced math and physics in Lawton. We're looking to establish a presence in Altus with support from the Boeing Corporation. And just a day or 2 ago, I got contacted by Elk City, and they were looking for someone to help them teach. They're looking for us to help them teach chemistry there in Elk City. So we're looking for ways that we can expand our impact and our reach. I should mention this is a second career for me, and so when we talk about the future of the school, I think the future of the school rests with its present students. And so every student that walks through the Manning Academic Center will read on a plaque on the wall, it says, the future of the future is the present. And so indeed, for the young people today that are the students, the reason I came to OSSM, I had finished a successful career building a company called Saxon Publishers. Governor Keating we had hosted them, Governor Keating at Saxon Publishers when he was the governor. We had had a program to try to teach reading to illiterate homeless women, and we taught them, we were very successful in teaching them how to read, and so he came for the graduation ceremony there. I did very well financially building the company from basically the dining room table with the founder, John Saxon, to a company that was about 100 million in sales. So right now, Governor Brad Henry actually works in the same office. That was my office at Saxon Publishers. The road that leads up to our 160-acre campus is called John Saxon Boulevard. In the original architectural plans, if you see filed with the city, there was a cul-de-sac leading nowhere called the Wrong Way. And so people would turn in there and go, where am I going? You're going the wrong way. But so what happened was I had left Oklahoma, lived in the Dallas area. My wife and I lived in a beautiful home in about a 6,000 square foot home in Plano, Texas, in a nice community there. And then Dr. Manning was thinking of retiring back in 2010, and she reached out to me and said, Frank, I'm thinking of retiring. Would you be interested in taking my place? And I had a family meeting with my wife and 4 children who were preteens and teenagers. And they all outvoted me and said they did not want to move back to Oklahoma. And so I contacted Chairman Dan, as I call him, and Dr. Manning, and said, thanks for reaching out to me, but the time isn't right. Oh, I forgot an important fact. After I left Saxon Publishers, I grew the company to about 100 million sales. I didn't feel fulfilled because something was missing in my life. My passion was for teaching, so I left my job at the peak of my career, and then decided to pursue my life's passion for teaching. So I came here to Oklahoma School of Science and Math. Dr. Manning told me she would love to have me with a PhD in math from MIT, but she said she had no money to pay me. So I taught here for 3 years for no pay in 2003, 4, and 5. And then I moved down to Dallas. And I got something to show you. Hold on. This will be really fast. I'll keep this really short. The real reason I left was my bucket list item was to appear in the Wall Street Journal in the little dot picture. And so here I am in the little picture you can't see, and I'm above the fold. So you've arrived in American business if you're in the journal above the fold. This guy is below the fold, so didn't quite make it yet. And so when this happened at the next board meeting, I submitted my letter of resignation and said, I achieved my life dreams in business. I want to pursue my life's dream to be a classroom teacher. So I left. Dr. Manning said she didn't have money to pay me, so I taught her for 3 years. I moved down to Dallas. And then when Dr. Manning was thinking of retiring, she contacted me, and I first said no because the time wasn't right. I said, maybe when my kids grow up, go to college, I'm an empty nester, I'll love to come maybe as a 3rd president of the school. Some time passed, Dr. Manning contacted me again and said, would you please reconsider? And my wife and I are both religious, and we thought this was a providential call to come back to Oklahoma to serve a state that's so richly blessed me. And so I think of the Bible verse, Luke chapter 12, verse 48, which says, to whom much is given, much is required. And so in my inauguration ceremony with Governor Fallon, we had the privilege of her here for that. I told the students, I said, the real reason I'm here is because I want to be an example to you as the young people, as students. I know that you're hardworking, you're ambitious, you're bright. You will be successful in whatever field of endeavor you choose to pursue. And when you achieve that success, please remember to give back to the community that's so fervently and earnestly invested in you. And so that's my message today. Thank you very much.
Great job, Doctor, and we're so glad that you answered the call and came to OSSM. So I challenged you at the beginning of this evening to think about what if? What if we didn't have an OSSM in Oklahoma? What if all these stories didn't happen? What if a young man from a small town in Oklahoma didn't grow up and be a Dr. Easton and didn't have an Easton-Neal theorem, which I have no idea what it is, but I think it's important. What if? And I think you've seen tonight that we can do a lot as Oklahomans when we come together and put our minds to it. And OSSM is a great model. It's starting to expand across the state. I'm glad you're coming to Elk City. We desperately need you in Elk City. But it's something that we've got to build on. And we can only do it with your support. So please, give early, give often to OSSM, and please encourage the legislature to support OSSM and continue to increase the support for OSSM and the great mission we do here. We made it, 2 hours, I told you. Thank you very much. Enjoy your evening.